Hello! Today we are sewing together the Campanella project, the yoke version. Here I'm going to sew a top, not the dress length. But the method is the same, it's, only the skirt is a little bit shorter. So here we have all the pieces. Here is the main yoke that has been interfaced. Here is the lining. The pieces are the same, just one has interfacing, the other not. And here we have the yoke ruffle, the ruffle that goes under the yoke. I cut the different colors so you can understand better the proceeding. Here, this is going to be my main pieces, and this is going to be my lining. So you see that the back part is a little bit shorter than the front part. And here we have the skirt, two rectangles, and this is a good time to finish the raw edges. Okay, so we are starting now the tutorial. We are starting with the shoulder seams. So put the two pieces, the front and the back yoke together, right side stitching, the lining with the lining and the main piece with the main piece. Before starting anything, just mark the center front and center back, both on the neckline and on the bottom. This you should also do with the ruffles and the skirt. We need these markings, these notches, center front and center back, both here and here. Now we're going to sew at 1 centimeter. This is our sewing allowance, and press the seams open. Here we don't have to finish the raw edges because it's going to be inside. So here they are, with the seams open. Now we are going to join the two yokes on around the neckline, center fronts and center back matching, and the shoulder seams, right sides touching. Here it is. Keep the interfaced pieces up because it's going to stabilize the lining. And here it is, center front, center back, and the shoulder seams. Now sew around the neckline at 1 centimeter. Just a quick tip, in order to have the shoulder seams matching, place the lining 1 millimeter before, and your sewing machine is going to push it so it is perfectly aligned. Okay, now with a pair of pinking shears, cut away 1/2 centimeter, 1/4 of an inch all around, but don't cut the shoulder seams because you're going to undo the back stitch and there is a risk that the seam is going to be to open here. Here, if you don't have a pair of picking shears, just cut little triangles all around the neckline. Don't go too close to the neckline, at least 3 millimeters leave, which is 1/8 of an inch. Now, keeping the sewing allowance under the lining, stitch near the edge all around. This will help keep the lining inside without popping up outside the dress. To do it in the right way, keep your eyes on the needle and go slowly. Okay, Vieni. Okay, here it is. You see? This stitching is going to keep the lining inside. Now go to your pressing station and press all around on the lining, keeping the lining up. Okay, here it is, nice and flat. Now we are going to sew the armholes. Okay, the armholes. This is an alternative method to the burrito roll method. Okay, so open the facing and the lining and the main piece and join them on the armholes, right side stitching like this, and put a pin there. Okay, start with the back stitch, and now slowly we are going to sew. Here the sewing allowance is 1/4 of an inch or 7 millimeters. So don't try to pull out all the fabric at one time, just little by little. So then take it out until you get to the shoulder. Since here the shoulder is very narrow, we are going to do it. We're going to stop after the shoulder seam, and we're going to start on the other side. This is very fast and easy to do. Just need to have a little patience here. No, not trying to pull it all out at the same time, because it's going to be harder for you to stitch. Okay, now you can match the shoulder seams and go a little beyond the shoulder seam and finish with a back stitch. Just a little bit after the shoulder. Back stitch. Now, just on this curve, with your picking shears, cut a little bit just for this curve. Okay, now just open it on the other side. You see here we did it on one side. Now we're going to do it on the other side like we did before. We open the yokes and we place on the armholes here and stitch all around to the back stitch we made. Okay, we are near our back stitch. While you're doing this, be sure that other fabric, the other pieces, the other part of the yoke is not inside where you're sewing, because then you have to undo the stitch. Just with your hands touch it and be sure that it's flat. So now here it's a little bit tricky. Need to take it out and finish on the back stitch. Now again, with your picking shears, cut away a little bit, and we did one armhole. Here it is. Now do the same on the other side, on the other armhole, and then we are going to, as we did for the neckline, we're going to stitch on the lining, keeping the seam allowance under the seam bulk. But here we cannot go all around like with the neckline, so we're going to go as much as we can on both sides. So we are stitching near the edge. Keep your eyes on the needle, and with your fingers try to all the time be aware of the seam bulk under the facing. Here it is. You see, I stopped here and I stopped here because I cannot go all around. Now we're going to close the side seams. Open the yoke and you join it on the side seam. The main piece with the main piece and the lining with the lining. So at 1 centimeter, here again, place the part you're sewing, the upper layer, place it 1 millimeter before, so your sewing machine is going to push it, and then your your seams are going to be perfectly aligned. Press the seams open, and now close the yoke and press it all around, keeping your lining up. Here we finished our bodice part, our yoke. Now we're going to sew the yoke ruffle. Put together front and back, main piece with the main piece and lining with the lining, and stitch here on the side seams, both of the lining and the main piece. Here it is. Open the side seams, and now we are going to place right sides touching the lining and the main ruffle, center fronts and center backs matching, and the side seams matching. Here it is. We are going to sew the bottom of the ruffle. So Center front, center backs, and the side seams matching. Now we're going to sew all around at 1 centimeter. Here it is. Maybe here, yes, it's easier to see. Now all around, cut away half the seam allowance with your pinking shears or make a little triangles. Here again, be careful not to cut the side seam because it can open. Okay, now we're going to stitch again on the lining with the seam bulk under to keep the lining inside. Here it is the part of the lining here. You see the stitching I did, and press the seam and press the ruffle flat. Now we're going to baste the ruffle on the bodice, on the yoke. So here it is. You can also, if you're sewing beginner, since here there are 4 layers of fabric, you can first baste the 2 layers of the yoke and the 2 layers of the ruffle, and then baste the 2 in together, because it's not easy to manage 4 layers of fabric together if you are not experienced. So you place the right sides touching, main sides in this case. So for me it's the red ones, center fronts, center backs, and the side seams. And now stitch all around, not at 1 centimeter but at half centimeter or 6 millimeters, which is 1/4 of an inch to baste. And then we are going to, when we join it to the skirt, we are going to sew all around at 1 centimeter. Here it is. 2 pieces are basted. Now we are going to prepare the skirt. The skirt part are 2 rectangles of fabric. If you haven't already, now it's time to finish the edges. And now we are going to sew the side seams at 1 centimeter on both sides and open the seams flat. Okay, seams flat. And now at the bottom of your skirt, you can finish with the overlocker with 1 needle, or you can do a stitching near the edge at half centimeter or 1/4 of an inch. And this seam you're going to use as a guide to sew the rolled hem. It's going to help you fold once and fold twice. Okay, so you're going to use this seam as a guide. So fold it once and fold it again and stitch near the edge. Be careful not to go. Here the sewing allowance is 1.5 centimeter, which is 3/4 of an inch. So since the skirt is flat, it's not all rounded, you can also just press on 1/2 centimeter and sew the hem. But I really think that this hem is much prettier because it's very narrow, and I think it gives it a very nice clean finish. So my advice is to do this hem. So fold it with your fingers, push with your nail, and fold it again. Stitch near the edge. Keep your eyes on the needle. And again, don't try to press and pin all around. It won't work. Maybe here that the hem is not round, it could work, but if you had a rounded hem, it could not work. So just little by little, stitch and fold. Fold and press with your finger. So fold on the guiding seam, fold, press, and go on like this until you finish. Now press the hem flat and our hem is finished. It's much easier to do the hem now than later when we attach the skirt to the bodice. So now we have to gather the fabric all around. And this skirt is almost 3 times the bodice. So if the bodice is 80 centimeters, the skirt is 270, almost a little bit less. So we need I'm saying you this because the gathering is going to be very thick, and for such a gathering you would need ideally a ruffle foot or gathering foot. So if you don't have one, you can use the other methods. I will make a video about that. But really, you can find it very cheap on Amazon. It's like $2 or $3, €2 or €3. So I really recommend that. So we are going to all around gather the fabric, starting for the side seams at 1 centimeters, which is ½ an inch. Here is our skirt. Gather it, and now we're going to attach it to the bodice, to the yoke. Now pin on the side of the skirt, because it's easier to attach the skirt to the bodice, so keeping the skirt up, because if you stitch really close to the gathering stitch, like just 1 millimeter here, it's easier for you to manage the gathering, and you can be sure that you won't see the gathering stitch on the front, on the dress. So all around insert the bodice, the yoke. So we have here the right side of the skirt and the wrong side of the lining part of the ruffles, of the yoke ruffle. So all around like this. So here you can see this is the skirt, the right side, and this is the lining of the ruffle. So pin all around, match the center fronts, the center backs, and the side seams, and now sew all around at 1 centimeter or just a little above the gathering stitch. Just stitch here near. So you can see here a little bit. So just on the this side of the seam, all around. Now check the gathering on the front. Now if even something went a little wrong, you have the ruffle to hide it. But check it so something, I don't know, maybe some piece, it's not. Okay, and if everything is okay, now all around, finish the edge. Here it is. I finished the edge. Now the last optional step is to stitch, to top stitch with the seam bulk under on the yoke all around. It helps keep the seam flat in place, and it really looks nice also. So I really recommend this step. Now press it flat one last time here. If you did the flat stitch, even if you did not do the top stitch, press it flat all around, and our lovely campanella dress with yoke and yoke ruffle is finished. Thank you for watching.